Joe Hopkins here, and today I am doing a video on, you can read it, right? Budget guitars, why you should buy one. I'm holding my Firefly FFLP right here, right? Not plugged in. All right, I'm gonna set it right there. So I want to hold this Hamm's beer, right? Budget guitars, like budget beer. You know, why should you buy one? Why should you buy a budget guitar? There's a comment I get quite often on my channel here. I get comments, right? Some people, they don't think I entirely suck, and they comment. And they say, why do you buy all these budget guitars? Why do you buy all these cheap guitars? Why don't you save up, right, all the money you spend on all these and get one really good one, right? Now I'm going to go over that a little bit. First of all, I'm broke. I don't have a lot of money, but I like recording music. And since I record a lot of different kinds of music, I need different kinds of guitars, right? Like, this is a good guitar for one kind of sound. I also, you know, got that Les Paul style. I could also use a Strat and a Telecaster. It'd be nice to have a hollow body and a 7-string guitar and a couple of acoustics. And, you know, that isn't exactly frivolous when, like me, you record music. And maybe you could make do with one really good guitar if you're doing the same kind of thing over and over again, you know. Like most people do one kind of music, and I don't. I do a lot of kinds of music. I'm interested in a lot of kinds of music. So I need different sounds. I need different guitars. And for what I do, it's kind of a need. And I can't afford to buy a bunch of guitars that are expensive. So finding good budget guitars, and that's the key, good ones, excuse me, is a good thing for guys like me that don't have a lot of money, right? But why should you buy a budget guitar? And here's the reason why. If you're buying a guitar because you believe it'll go up in value and it's an investment, then by all means, buy a Gibson. Buy a Fender, especially Gibson. You know, the value goes up over time, especially for certain models, right? It's a collector's thing. But if you're buying it to play, maybe it'd be nice to own one really good guitar, but you could spend a lot less on something that is arguably as good. And some of these budget brands are as good. Now, I'm going to compare the guitar market to the American auto market for a minute. Bear with me here, right? Because there's a comparison. American guitars and American cars, we made the best of both of them at one time. And, you know, with cars, I mean, starting in the 1920s with, you know, Ford and a lot of the luxury models, Cadillac and Lincoln and Oldsmobile and all these different car makes, we made the best. Arguably the best there was, to the point where, like, in the 40s, brands like Bentley and Rolls-Royce and Mercedes-Benz were copying what we were doing here. Cadillacs and Lincolns and Oldsmobiles, they were the cream of the crop. They were the top, right? And even up into the 60s, man, everybody wanted a muscle car, right? To the point where even the Japanese with Datsun and whatnot were really trying to do what we were doing here. Like the Z cars were like their Corvette. Everybody wanted to do what we were doing. And we were doing it about as the best you could at the time, right? Even into the 60s, where you see a lot of European cars with, you know, that are fast and sporty and luxurious, but they're also finicky and difficult, and they're in the shop all the time, and, you know, they're hard to deal with. Whereas our cars were luxurious and fast, and they were just really great cars. They were also durable and reliable. You know what I mean? You could buy a Corvette in the 60s, or you could buy a Ferrari in the 60s, and the Corvette will perform just as well, Like, watch some of those old races, man. Those old vets were the shit on the racetrack, even up against Ferraris and everything else. But the Ferrari would break down all the time, and it needed a lot of maintenance and a lot of finicky problems with it. And the Corvette, I mean, it's a small block Chevy. Come on, man. You can repair that at home. So, I mean, you know, we made the best there was. And then sometime in the 70s, the American car market, the car companies started just skating on their name. By the 1980s, people were really buying Japanese cars a lot. The Japanese cars really took over the market. Honda and Toyota, Mazda, Mitsubishi in the 80s. They got big. I remember the 80s, and I remember American cars in the 80s were shit. They were really bad. The best American cars in the 80s were American cars with Japanese motors in them and Japanese parts. You know, the best 80s cars I owned were Chevys and Fords that had like Mitsubishi engines in them and stuff like that. So, I mean, the Japs really stepped up their game big time. They made cheap, reliable cars while America was skating on their name, right? And it took a long time for people to trust American cars again, right? It didn't take as long for America to really, for them to get their cars as good, but people didn't trust them for a good while. And it's like that with guitars. We have brands like Gibson and Fender, and honestly, Fender has kept up their quality pretty well, but Gibson struggled. I dare say I believe Gibson is getting it back up to speed, but a lot of people aren't going to trust them that much for a while, like with the American car companies. So here we're at this crossroads where these Asian guitars, you know, and not Japanese. The Japanese guitar companies, they were the interlopers in the 70s and 80s. Companies like Ibanez that are now big, right? But a lot of these companies now, they're making guitars that are as good or getting close to as good as anything that was made here in the US. But they're selling them for a lot less because they're building their name. Now, some of these companies, I would say if you're going to buy something from them, you might want to do it sooner rather than later. Oh, pardon me. Mostly because, like with Ibanez, and some of these Japanese companies that kind of got into this in the 80s, I'd be willing to bet you companies like Firefly, right? If they stick around, it's likely they're going to cost more in 10 years, right? And some of these early models might be worth money if they stick around. I'm hoping they do. But if they do, yeah, kind of like those early Ibanezes are worth a good bit now. And they can't skate by on their name. They can't just put out junk and hope nobody notices because, well, we have a good name. They don't have a name, right? They're newer companies. So it's kind of like with that. Now, like I said, I think Gibson is catching up with their quality control. I think they got the message, but are you going to trust them? Why you should buy a budget guitar is because Gibson still costs too much. They cost entirely too much, especially when you have companies like Guitar Fetish with their Xavier guitars and Slick guitars, and brands like All-in-One Guitars that have AIO and Wolf, and Hard Luck Kings and other brands like that are putting out stuff that's as good as just about anything I've played from Fender or Gibson, and they're doing it for a fraction of the price. And why would you want to spend more unless you're collecting? I get that. I have a friend that wants to buy Gibsons and Fenders and the high brand models because he's hoping they'll go up in value. But if you want to play them, if it's just for you, why spend a lot of money when you can get something as good for less? Now, some of the budget brands are, you know, they're not as good. Now, we all remember, any of us that are my age, remember the 80s and 90s when a lot of the budget brands were like, really, really not that great. But nowadays, $200, $300 guitars are really, really good. Most of them are solid instruments. They're solidly good. I've got a Glaria. I'm not going to say it's as good as a Fender or a Gibson, but for $100, it's really, really good at that price. And I've got a Wolf that at $500 is as good as a Gibson. That would cost 4 or 5 times more than that. And it looks that good too, right? I've got my Hard Luck Kings Bombshell, which is, their Stratocaster style. It's as good as anything I've played from Fender. And, it's not like I've only played budget guitars. I've played and owned other guitars. I played a lot of Fenders, and I put that Hard Luck Kings model right up against any of them. I got it on sale for $200 on their website. It was on their daily deals. Normally they're like $300 a piece. And I'd put it up against any $1,200 Fender Strat. I put my Wolf, my $500 Wolf, up against any Gibson Les Paul, and those things get expensive. We all know they do. And that's why you should buy a budget guitar. It's just more for less, like your mom, right? Because, when I was banging your mom, I mean, she's easy as hell. She's not the most high quality woman, but, I mean, come on. She knows how to be a freak in bed, so. I am guaranteeing, with the beer drinking and the foul mouth and this talking about your mom, that nobody's ever going to sponsor me. So yeah, you should buy a budget guitar. If it's for you, if it's to play, if it's to actually enjoy, because you can buy it for less. Or you can spend as much as you would on a Gibson and get a whole collection of them and see the wide range of tones you can get. I've got a whole collection of guitars, and it's pretty awesome. I mean, I've spent about as much as I would have on a Gibson Les Paul. And what did I get for that? Let me show you what I got for the cost of a Gibson Les Paul. I got all this. Yeah, and there's some cases right down there with some more, and some cases with some more, and yeah. And then there's some more. There's one here, there's one back there. Yeah, just to give you an idea, for what I spent, what I would have spent, for all the people who are like, why don't you save up and get a good guitar? I've got a lot of good guitars. I got a pile of them. Most of them are really, really good. It's rare that I get that disappointed with something. And even if I do, I've spent as much as I would have on that one good guitar people say I should have bought on all of those. And if I get one that is crap, I can always get another one, try again, or get the same thing from a different brand. Some people complain about Firefly. This one turned out really good. But if it doesn't, you can always try Harley Benton. You're not out that much money either way. You're not spending that much on them. And that's why you should buy a budget guitar. And I mean, I just showed you. I've got this huge collection of guitars, which is fun. It's like with beer, right? You could buy a 4-pack of the fancy craft beer, or man, you could get a 30-pack of Hamms. I didn't get a 30-pack. They don't sell the 16 ounces in the 30-pack. I just picked up at the Dollar General, 6-pack of 16 ounces, right? But hey, less than $5 for a 6-pack of the Tall Boys. Same thing with guitars, right? Quantity and quality. People say you got to pick one or the other. No. These are good guitars. I've got, what's that one? SX? FX? I don't know. It's sold by Rondo Music. It's really good. Really great guitar. And it was like $200. I've got my Guitar Fetish Xavier Telecaster. It's like $200. I've got that Firefly I just showed you was like a $200 guitar. The Hard Luck Kings one was like a $200 guitar. I'm spending $200-$300 a piece on them. The most expensive one I bought was my Wolf. And that was like $450, $460, something like it. With the case, in total, it was like $505. $500 with a case, you know. Like, seriously, altogether, I could have bought maybe 1.5 Gibson Les Pauls, maybe, probably less than that, right? Depending on which Les Paul it is. I mean, come on, man. Gibson, some of them Les Pauls are like 10 grand. And they're not even super limited signature models. It's just their $10,000 model. I don't get why it's 10 grand. Just seems nuts to me. I can't see spending more than like $1,200 on a guitar. And it's one I better damn well like, right? I don't get it. I don't get the expensive guitar thing. Like I said, unless you're a collector, like my friend. His guitars probably will go up in value. And yeah, he plays them, but at the same time, he's hoping they increase in value. And he's probably right. He's buying stuff that will probably be worth more in 10 years. But I buy budget guitars. I buy budget guitars. I buy budget beer most of the time. I buy crappy cars because I can get a used car and it lasts me 10 years. I'm also a mechanic, so, you know, if you're not, maybe get a new car. I don't know. Cars are a bad example in this case. But, you know, I was saying back in the 80s, people bought the Japanese cars because they last 300,000 miles. And the American cars, you're lucky if you get 200 out of them. I can dig that idea, you know? And I do that with guitars. I get a lot of mileage out of mine. And I'm not spending that much money. And yeah, this is a rant. I'm ranting. I'm ranting about guitars and beer and your mom. And I don't know why the your mom thing really took off, but I started to really get the your mom thing once I hit 40, because now all of a sudden people's moms are fucking hot, you know? I don't know. They weren't that hot when I was 20, but now all of a sudden it's like, hey, moms are hot. Maybe it's because they're my age, you know? I don't know. There you go. For you guys out there, I bet you a lot of you got moms that are hot, right? You know it. You know when your mom's hot. You know it. I like to tell my kid that, hey, your mom is hot. But I mean, come on, it's my wife, right? She's somebody's mom. Anyway, oh my God. You get most of the way through a 6-pack and you start getting weird. So anyway, that's my rant about cheap guitars, cheap beer, and your mom. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh wait, I'm supposed to tell you at the end here, there's an end screen and there's playlists, and subscribe to my channel and watch my shit and listen to my songs and I don't know, something else like that. I wish I had a sponsor. You know, I'm going to sponsor me. This video is sponsored by Joe and your mom, right? This video is sponsored by your mom. Blowing dudes since 1972. Oh, God. Could you imagine what your mom did with your dad? That's how you happened. There you go. You needed that image in your mind. All right. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, baby. Bye-bye. Ah.